Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Property Lifestyle Mastery podcast. I'm Jackie Tomes, and this podcast is all about building a property business that ultimately gives you freedom in all of its different forms. And this week's episode is a real corker when it comes to looking at what the truth behind really going for freedom means. I was quite blown away when I listened to this episode. It's a very open and honest share from Dom about what he's really been going through over the last 12 months and how, in his true Dom style, he's taken a very unique and powerful perspective on it. So a very rare opportunity to be able to listen to such a vulnerable and open conversation. So without further ado, let me welcome the beautiful Dom and of course my wonderful husband Dave to this episode of the Property Lifestyle Mastery podcast.
Hello, Dom.
Hello, Dave.
So we're doing another of the looking at the last 12 months and seeing what have been the biggest learnings, and the focus today is all on you. I'm really excited because you've had such a transformational kind of a year of change, really a time of massive change, right? And I think there's probably a heck of a lot of learnings and wisdoms that have come out of it for you. So I'm very excited to see what you've got to share with us all today. So I guess I always like to start with, like, what do you think is the biggest, the most, I guess, obvious or the most overview learning that you've had for the year? That'd be a really good place to start. The thing that you think has been most prominent for you in the last 12 months.
Actually, great question, great place to start. You know, sometimes we know something intellectually, but it's only until we go through it that we really learn it and embody it. It's like, the obvious one is like driving a car. It's like, okay, I know I need to put my foot on this pedal, but it's only when you actually practice it physically and go through the motions, and then you realize that actually what you knew intellectually is less than half of actually driving a car. Your body has to learn it. So I think the biggest learning this year has been, I know an awful lot about mindset, about resilience, about well-being, about inner peace, but boy have I been tested and learned a whole load more in the last 12 months or so about that, because I've deliberately put myself through something that I really never ever expected I would go through. So yeah, I can give you some context around that, and let me tell you a little story then. It started thanks to our good friend Simon Tandry, who I've interviewed on this podcast, episode 56, if anyone wants to look back. And I spoke with him in August, and I had my first session with him, and he's able to sort of read your energy, and it's just out of this world. And he said to me, sort of long and short of it, because I had a few sessions with him, he said, "Dom, you're lonely." And it was like, what are you on about? I'm lonely. That's what? And another thing he said is, like, you're confident, but you're not speaking your truth. And those two things really hit me. And then from there, I was like, okay, I want to dive more into this. And I did some energy healing courses. Like, you and I both did the Vortex Foundation. And the thing about this energy healing stuff that maybe not everyone is into, but one of the things it does do is, one, it's a path of healing, and two, it's a path of enlightenment. So it wakes you up to all the things you disown. And one of the things I effectively was disowning was that I wasn't being as authentically me as I potentially could be. I was sort of putting up with a way of being because I thought that's the way it had to be. And think of it this way: if you were part of I'm not going to say any particular ones, but if you were part of a religion and you didn't feel, and that had really strong beliefs and ways of being, for example, I'm sure we can all think of some, but I won't name any, and you just didn't resonate with it, and you didn't feel right, didn't feel like you, and you were kind of the ugly duckling amongst the family or the community there, then you're lonely because you're not able to be yourself. I was in situations where I'd bring up a conversation. I'd like to talk about my work, including alternative things like energy healing or maybe even astrology and stuff like that. And then if people roll their eyes, it's like, okay, I'm not going to talk to them about this stuff.
Yeah.
But if you're in that environment constantly, basically you're not able to be who you want to be because you're effectively being judged, and they're,
Yeah.
putting their opinions onto you, and effectively it's not that they're not letting you be yourself, but you're not encouraged and invited to grow and share and experience what you're going through in your life with them. And that was one of the things, so both community, but also that happens in relationships as well, right? So, and I invite the listeners to go, is there anything in my personal partner relationship or in maybe the wider family or community or religion where I'm not able to express who I am, without being judged, put down, and made, or just, yeah, basically feeling, as though you don't fit in. So, in short, having learned that I was lonely and did this energy healing stuff, I came to the confrontation and basically, I was effectively a bad husband. I had, being very open and honest here, and please don't judge me for this. I had an affair, and with a person who is my best friend, who I'm now partners with, and I tried to make it. I kind of reneged on it, and I tried to make it work with my wife, and I was very bad because I lied. And by the way, this is one of the big lessons: is hell is lying or trying to maintain a lie. So if anyone is lying about anything in your life, just let go and tell the truth, because the truth will set you free. That was a
Wow.
massive lesson that I learned. So not proud of how I handled it, but it happened the way it happened, and now I'm doing the best I can, which we're always kind of doing the best we can with the level of confidence and motivation and knowledge that we have.
Yeah.
And so tried to make it work with my wife, but I realized that actually I didn't want to spend the next 10 years with her and my kids, um, and get to the end of, them being teenagers, and actually look back and go, that wasn't, I lived with her because of the kids rather than because I really wanted to be with her. So I took the very, very difficult and, frowned upon decision to effectively leave my wife in August last year, and create a relationship with my new partner Rebecca. And yeah, it's been the biggest transition of my life. And yeah, look, I never ever expected it to happen. It wasn't a desperately bad relationship with my wife. It just wasn't as good as it could have been. And it's a bit like this. It's a bit like being in a job. Like your first job. What was your first job, Dave?
Actually, my first job was in music, so I never had one of
Right.
the smaller jobs.
Yeah.
So I didn't get one of those. I actually always loved my jobs. Maybe not the
Okay.
best
Okay. Well, for
example.
most people, like the first job
Yeah.
they ever have, could you still do it? Answer, yes, probably I could. Would you want to be still doing it? Answer, no, definitely not. Why not? Because you've grown, because maybe the company hasn't grown with you. And I think that's the way to look at relationships. You have to be growing together, not necessarily, well, ideally in roughly the same direction. Um, but relationships break down when there's contempt, when there's like, yeah, sort of judgment and condemnation of the other person. And so it's been a massive learning curve around relationships. And I think if you're not growing together and able to be yourself without, and sharing in everyday life effectively, then you're gonna struggle. And another, so as a result, I've obviously done loads of study, as you can imagine, as I'm sure you would too. Anything that we're interested in, we like to study about, right? Or certainly you and I do.
Yeah.
So I've learned tons about relationships, and I now know that any relationship can work if you want it to. And so it's kind of all the harder in a way for the family around us to go, well, hang on, it wasn't desperately bad. Why did you end it? But this is kind of, it was my decision. I wanted to go for something better. And that's one of the big lessons is you've got to say no to the good to say yes to the great. And
It was good enough, right? You were
it,
living a life that was good enough But it took you. What was it then for you? Because I mean, you've gone through quite so much. So thank you so much for sharing that. Like, it's like a lot of context and amazing to be so open. And most people wouldn't. So thank you, Tom. Like, but I guess looking at that, what was it that made you say, like, what was the learning? What's the learning you would look back and say, how do I know when it's not good enough?
Mm. So I think I'm I'm not the I'm not the one to judge other people's relationships. I can only
Mm.
ever sort of make judgments and thoughts about my own.
Yeah.
Um, because any relationship can work, and if you want it to, absolutely should. Because if I look at other people's relationships, I think yours and Jackie's amazing because I know that you guys you talk in the evening, you discuss things, and you're able to be there for each other. And this is another massive learning is that true love is holding that space for your partner to just be themselves, warts and all. And if you can, yeah, just listen and let them be and with all their imperfections. That's I think that's true love.
That's
But
amazing.
when
I'd love to hear a little bit more about like the words holding space. I think most people don't really know what that
Mm,
means, and I think it's one of the biggest problems of relationships is the inability to serve what the partner's needs are in theory because you can't work it out or you're not unaware of it or whatever it is. Like you're right, the relationship requires each party to have what they need from that other person or from the partnership as a whole. So, and I
mm,
think holding space is a very broad term for what are actually
it
probably
is.
just a few key things that are required. So I guess
Yes.
it would be, my question to you would be, what does that mean in your opinion for a partnership if you're holding space for someone to be there for them? What does that mean?
I think from my perspective, holding space would be um, allowing that person to be who they are without judging them, without condemning them.
Yeah.
Um, um, and basically just kind of listening without butting in, without saying yes, but no, but this, and what about this and that and this, and you should prioritize this and this and this. It's just literally is be listening, without
Listening.
judgment. Yeah, I think that
Listening
that
without
is
judgment. That's it,
yeah,
right? It's actually
yeah.
quite simple. I think it's really simple, but actually, judgment is one of the big words I've like when I was thinking about my biggest learnings.
Mm,
Judgment is part of mine, and I think part of what you've said here. I think you've gone through several different really big learnings in this. But part of it was massively the judgment from other people, and I know it when we had our conversation about my biggest learnings. It was to do with one of them was to do with other people, not just letting them have their opinions and that not affecting
yes,
you,
yes,
but only in a scenario where you're able to, if it's not working for you, you're able to not be around that opinion so much. But in most cases, the only opinion that is a problem is a judgmental one. And in particular, a judgmental one, it could be just judgmental of other people, of you're sitting there listening to someone being a negative Nelly, judging the
yeah,
world, judging others, and actually that's not helping your energy and that's not bringing anything to you,
yes,
it's actually pulling you downwards. But then it gets even worse, the next level down is when that is
mm,
directed at you, judgment
yeah,
of you. And that is the moment that it's a problem, is when someone comes in and you say something that is authentically you, and
yeah.
then the response is a
Get
form of
shot down.
judgment, and that can come in
Yeah,
so many different ways. It can come in kind of like making fun of you, or it can come as kind of like a derogatory comment, or
yes,
literally a telling you shouldn't be doing that, or a telling you what you should be doing. There's so many different forms of it, but in essence it's a decision that what you are doing and what you have done is somehow
yes,
not how they would like it, and they
yeah,
make it very clear to you in some
yes,
form, and now they have
yes,
judged. And in a
yes,
partnership, you're saying that holding space for someone and making a really, really an uplifting partnership is the openness of listening without any of that. That anything the
yeah,
person says is totally acceptable, and you can take it on. You don't have to give comment. You don't have to say that is good or bad, or they should have done it or not done it. You just have to listen and say, yeah, I
yeah.
get it. I understand.
Exactly. And so there's a couple of things that come up here. One is the word judgment. And what I've learned from Jordan Peterson, actually, he said, well, actually, we can't not judge because we're always filtering what the information that's being said. So we're always judging, but we don't have to condemn. We don't have to
Okay.
make that person wrong. And that's a massive learning that I've had, because I thought it was just between me and my ex-wife, but no, it is like her family, her sisters, her
Yeah.
um, friends, our joint friends, my family, my sister. All of them have suddenly um, had their feathers, their life, sort of really shaken. And that was completely unexpected. I didn't realize quite how much I would be condemned by a whole load of other people.
Mm.
And this is where it really hits home as to who your real friends are, because you and Jackie, it brings me tears to think about it. But you were so kind. I basically got kicked out of the house. I didn't have anywhere to live, and you lent me your motorhome, and I was incredibly grateful for that. And my parents, didn't like it, but they obviously, I'm their son, so they kind of felt a duty to look after me, which they did, and they certainly come around the quickest, and I'm very very grateful for that. But yeah, other people, and what you kind of hear on the grapevine about what people are saying about you, and you realize that this is another massive insight for everyone listening. Happy people don't condemn others. They just don't. It's like there's no reason to have a go at anything or anyone else if you're happy internally. And what I've realized and learned about is that people who condemn others, it's really a reflection of what's going on inside of themselves.
Yeah.
It's something that they're not happy with. They wouldn't do that. Oh no, that's wrong. They should. They're bad. I'm good. Whereas a happy person is just like, it is what it is, and I'm not going to worry about it because it's not my issue. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I'm not going to condemn that person. I'm not going to judge them as being, a traitor, or doing something illegal, whatever it might be. They're it's not. They just don't get concerned in that way. They're just loving towards you. Yeah, and that's holding space. Some other friends who we're going to interview, and they're going to be on a podcast soon. But Ginny and Jay are also really, really generous. They've been through something similar, so they really understood, and let me stay in their house, and it was just lovely to be. So I really learned who my true friends were, and it's really fascinating. And I'm not judging the other people, but that a lot of people haven't ever reached out. Um, Admittedly, I haven't, and I'm still going through that process now, slowly reaching back out, going,
Mm.
I've been through this and I'm feeling much
Yeah.
better and talk about it now. But um, yeah, so it was a big journey. I'm still on it. But effectively I chose to halve my net worth,
Mm.
to make it a lot more difficult to see my kids. And I tell you, that is probably the hardest thing, is just not seeing my kids every day like I was before. But I
Yeah.
know that I will rebuild a life where I can see them regularly, and can give them even more, and where we have a very open relationship, a loving relationship, far more intimate, and they can see what a really good quality relationship really looks like. Because here's another thing for the listeners: if you have kids and you're not demonstrating a loving environment because you don't get on that well with your partner, perhaps, then actually you're indirectly teaching them what a relationship might look like.
Yeah.
One way you don't necessarily tell the truth. Um, and you're not authentic, and that's not a healthy way to raise them either. So a lot of people effectively condemn me for effectively leaving my kids as well as my wife. Um, but actually, I'm thinking, well, no, I can make it better now. Okay, it's taking a little while to get there, a few months to get there, but I know I can make it even better. So, yeah, it's one of those ones where there is always something in life that's holding you back, whether it's yourself, well, it's always yourself, effectively. But a situation, it could be a job, it could be a partner, it could be a community. But if you're kind of feeling stuck in it, or you're feeling lonely, or feeling as though you can't be authentically you, you're you're holding yourself back. And that's possibly one of the biggest areas that, if you transformed it, that's when you really, I think, take off with your happiness, your success, with who you meant to be in life. And I think I wanted to go through this process, and I have no regrets. And it's happened the way it's happened, and I'm not gonna condemn myself or feel guilty or anything like that. It's just what it is, and I'm loving towards as many people as I can be. And anyway, I'm waffling now, but that
Well, I think
was
that's
that
all
was
you
a
can ever. That's it. That's all you can ever do, right? Yeah, and I think you're perspective here where you're at is coming from in the thick of it still as you've said so yourself, you're still in it, but you've actually come out enough, you've brought your head out of water enough to actually see what's going on with a bit of perspective, which I think is one of the hardest things for most people to do, but also one of the things you obviously have trained yourself to do for your entire career, to find that mindset space, to find that perspective. And as soon as you can find that, you can start, reading about it and like really assessing what's going on. And that allows you to experience it in a different way, a way that's not so condemning of yourself. Because the problem is, and I think this is what I've heard a lot from you here, is the problem comes when there comes to be judgment and condemnation, but it's not necessarily from the outside world. The problem with the outside world doing it is it makes your self-talk start to do it. And the hardest thing is to let go of that self-talk and accept yourself and just say, this is just how it is. I'm doing the best I can. I'm being loving to everyone around me. And if they don't want to accept that, that's their problem. And that's nothing to do with me. And I'm not gonna judge them or condemn them for that. But the main thing is not to take on that condemnation. And you said it earlier yourself, happy people don't condemn or don't, they might judge. I use different words. I think of judgment as condemning in my mind. The judge is the condemnation in the same sentence. As soon as you're in judgment, you're now saying good or bad. I use discernment as the alternative. Your guys' concept of judgment to condemnation is interesting, because I do think we all have opinions. And those opinions are you're sorting through and making filters and making sense of stuff. But the moment you start becoming less happy is the moment you start taking those opinions and condemning others, because you're basically it's a reflection of yourself. Exactly what you said. It's basically saying that's exactly what you'll be saying to yourself internally, your self-talk. And whenever you hear someone judging you and condemning you for anything, it's the bigger perspective, the one that helps you to free you, is the one where you're able to say, okay, great, well, I get that they're saying that and feeling that, and that's because that's exactly what they're saying to themselves, and they're making themselves unhappy with that. And I actually, in many ways, I feel sorry for them for that. And it's a shame that they're living that life in that way, but I don't need that. That's their thing. And I can see that they're now just reflecting that back on me, but that is all in their space. And I've got my own morals, my own compass, my own life, and this is the best I can do with it, and I'm happy with that. I'm accepting of that. And then you're free. It's like you're taking off the shackles of personal self-talk, condemnation, all of that, and you let it all go to the side. You say, no, I'm just going to do my best and love everyone as much as I can in the way that I'm capable of.
There we go. Exactly. And, it does take a lot of courage to make big decisions like this. And the reason why I created or was able to have that courage was because I did have some RTT, some rapid transformational therapy, which is a type of hypnosis that takes you back to where the original program that you're running in your mind originated. So usually between the ages of 0 and 12, because that's when you're most susceptible, and that's where you're being programmed by the life around you, by your being in a delta and theta and alpha wave brain states, so you're not filtering and analyzing like you are as an adult. And I had this therapy, and the first session was around self-trust, and when I realized that I didn't trust myself to make important decisions, and that's why I hadn't committed to things in the same way. And I really see that now, and this is my biggest, I'm such an advocate of this now. I realize that it's not lack of knowledge that people have when it comes to building their business. It's a subconscious limiting belief. Could be something around self-trust. It could be around self-worth. Could be around the way they talk to themselves. The fear of being rejected. Those are things that are very common. So I had self-trust issues around making big decisions. So that was one, but I had therapy on it, and it was incredibly useful. And the second one was around confrontation. So it's all very well making a decision to leave your, but actually you're going to have lots of difficult conversations. And actually, another realization. Everything you want is just on the other side of a really difficult conversation. So having had the therapy on the self-trust and confrontational conversations, that gave me the confidence to go through it. And there's been some dark days, but emotional intelligence is about the speed of recovery. And so I knew anytime I was having a difficult time, okay, I can go for a walk, I can speak to a friend, I can pat the dog, whatever it is that makes me feel better quicker and gets me back to a better state. So now, thankfully, having had the therapy plus all the mindset work that I've got and been through and learned, um, yeah, there's something that I'm working on with Rebecca, my new partner, and you guys, which is all about helping people who basically they know all the information, but they just can't get going because there's a subconscious limiting belief that is holding them back, and that's what we address now. And I'm absolutely passionate about it. And proof is, it's been almost an instant success. And I think people are recognizing that. People are waking up to realizing that it's not that they just need to learn some more information. And if they knew that new stuff, then they would. It's actually because of the programming of the way the mind works that has
Yeah.
been built up over years and years and years, but particularly in childhood. And that's what's really holding them back. And that's why that's why we're big fans of the RTT and the human
Yes.
design, which is another big learning area for me as well. But yeah,
I guess that brings me to think about the very first point you made at the very beginning, which is that learned experience is different to lived experience. And in essence, I think we're all very aware of this on a subconscious level, and we're all
yeah,
like, we can do all the learning, but there is always a deep part of ourselves that is saying, no, I don't really know what's going to happen, no. And the truth is that the body, the subconscious, is terrified of the unknown, because as far as it's concerned, if you don't know what it is, it could kill you. Very straightforward. If you don't understand it, if you don't know what it is, it could basically come in and take you down, and that could end in death. So even though you've learned everything about it, most people will have that subconscious driver, that pullback, saying, I don't really know this because I haven't yet experienced and lived it. And that is the hardest step to take for a lot of people. Some people don't have this problem. It's almost like they're addicted to the experience and they can't help themselves but dive into the unknown, and they'll just keep doing that. That's very rare. But those people who are more normal in life are the ones who are held back by these types of subconscious fears. And they will basically hold themselves back because basically deep down they're scared of the unknown, and they know that they don't know it until they've lived it. Yes, so most people are deep down, they understand that there is a difference between the learning and the lived experience, and their body is terrified of that, not knowing how it's going to be when you actually step into it and actually do it. And they're not aware of it on a conscious level, but that's causing all this self-talk, this sense of not being good enough, self-worth, self-trust issues. Because once you've done it and you've followed it through and you've actually followed the path and lived it, you start to look at it and say, oh no, I get that now. Yeah, I can do that.
yeah,
Got it. No worries.
yeah.
Can do it the same every time. We've got no problems. I think that is a big part of the route. What your first point, lived experience being key.
It's I think there's a difference between awareness and understanding. So I don't think people understand it, but they're aware that there's something holding them back. And because they can always feel it in the body. It's like, I want to do this, but something is stopping me. Is it? And generally speaking, you can almost categorize it into two things. It's fear, because as we know, about 77% of our thoughts are negative and sort of trying to keep us safe. And so the majority of motivations for most people are fear-based ones, rather than actually, this is who I really want to be, and I'm motivated and inspired to do these things. But it involves going through discomfort, and so that's another really big learning, is that actually people who are successful are willing to be uncomfortable. They're willing to go through the difficulty. It's everyone wants the success without the effort. Everyone wants, who is it? I think it was Jimmy Carr actually on Diary of a CEO. He said, everyone wants, my success, my fame, my money. No one wants to go through the difficulty and journey that I took to get here, because it was fucking hard, so it means fair, but it's like what you and Jackie have been through. You've done so much learning and growing in difficult times and ups and downs, and people don't want to go through that. They just want the result at the end. But actually, if we didn't have those difficulties, we wouldn't appreciate the good times nearly as much. So I think it's a necessary struggle, if we call it that. I think there's a difference between struggle and suffering. I think suffering is kind of we choose it, and it's our mental state that causes suffering. But struggle is necessary. It's like going to the gym. You have to effectively tear your muscles in order to rebuild them. And so now I'm much more willing to embrace the struggle, the difficulty, the challenge, the resilience I need to learn in order to get to a newer, better, higher state in my relationships, in my business,
Yeah.
in life. So I think that's a really important one for the listeners to be aware of, is that, you know what, embrace struggle, because that's going to make you stronger.
That's amazing. Embrace it. I can't tell you how many calls I've heard Jackie on with mentees where she's just like, just suck it up. Just suck it up and do it. I know you don't want to do it. Just do it. And it's so
Yes.
true. Like we get averted from the things we don't want, and you kind of look at it and go, oh, I don't really feel like doing that. And then there are a million and one reasons why you find why you shouldn't really be doing that thing. And one of the things I think with business building, one of the biggest dichotomies is that in order to build a business, you do have to set things up in such a way that someone else can do them for you, and you do have to find other people who are great at things that you're not great at and get them to do it, and find the experts. And so you've got this part of you that's sitting there going, yeah, great, I need to find people who are better than me. I need to get other people doing things for me. I need to outsource the low level tasks and focus on the ones that pay more money.
Yes.
And yet you cannot have that straight away. It's a step-by-step process, and there is a lot of periods where if you're building your business, you do need to know how to run all of your business. And you do need to understand how it all works, because if you've got too much of your business, or even important parts of your business, it might even be loads of it, just could be big important parts that you've just completely outsourced and completely abdicated on, then you have a massive risk. And as soon as that person who's doing it is gone, you don't know what to do. You've lost your tool. You need to know what's going on, and unless you know what's going on in the business, you can't hire the right person to do it, because you don't know whether they're doing it well or not. So you're basically in the hands of the gods. So you've got to go through this process of do the things you don't enjoy for a period of time, so that you know how they work, so you can get them working. You understand, as the CEO of your own business, how to make it work, and then you know who the right person to do that thing is, because you can see exactly what they're doing right or wrong, and then you outsource it as soon as you possibly can. And that's the growth of a business. And I think it's really hard, because people just want to do that very early, like right at the beginning, and it's basically saying, I don't really want to do that. Oh, it seems really hard work. Oh, I don't like dealing with that. Whoever it might be, and if you try and outsource everything like that at the beginning, you're going to really struggle. It's really, I mean, almost impossible to build a business like that.
Yeah.
Almost impossible. And more importantly, I think even if you manage it for a while, you are setting a load of traps that you will fall into in the future. It's really high risk, basically. And I just think that you're right. It challenges what makes it satisfying. I literally had that conversation with Jackie last night. I was having a chat with her, going, do you know what? I really enjoy this business, and I know we've had challenges, but they are the thing that makes it fulfilling. Actually, I'm looking at all the challenges we're having. We had quite a few yesterday, and I was just going, actually, that's what makes it, when it gets good, I look back and see that and go, wow, I got through that. It's so much more rewarding. And that's probably why I'm an entrepreneur, because that's what brings me the fulfillment in life, is to see the hurdles I've managed to overcome in a business setting, and what I managed to set up. So totally great point, Tom. Brilliant one.
It's such a profound one, isn't it? Because actually, people who do like ultra marathons, or even marathons, frankly, it's the pain and the struggle that it is to go through it, what with the training and even the event itself, and then just getting through that. Actually, it's getting through the journey of it that makes it so rewarding, and that's why you're in celebration. It's like, I remember that was so difficult and yet so rewarding. It's like, go on.
I think that is the key to what we all want in the end, which is to enjoy the journey, right? Because we all get into whatever we want in life because we're looking for the end result. We think that's the thing that's going to make life rich and fun and great, all the money in the world or whatever it is. Have the business just operating without you involved. That's you kind of trying to get to the end result, but that never is the moment of magic. The moment of magic comes when you realize you're actually enjoying the journey, even if it's hard and challenging. And that's so hard to do. You're right. The ultramarathon runner who's just pushing their body to the limit in their training, they are getting into a mindset where they look forward to that. and
Yeah.
they actually thrive on
Addicted
that
to it.
struggle,
Yeah.
and they get addicted to it, right? And if you can get that from you, it doesn't have to be physical challenge. It can just be mental. It could be emotional challenge. It could be anything. If you can find your joy in the challenge, it doesn't have to be joy in terms of light happiness. I'm not saying
Yes.
you're sitting there in a really challenging moment, smiling away, go, yeah, I love this, with no feelings whatsoever. It's actually finding a perspective where you're looking at it, not necessarily in the exact moment, but straight after it. And I think you said earlier about your speed of recovery of emotional,
Yes.
how quickly you can,
Intelligence. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, emotional, how quickly can you retract from a negative
Recover.
emotional state, recover.
Yeah.
And I think that is the magic. If you can do that quickly in the journey, you hit a challenging moment, you have the emotion, the negative emotion jump up at you, God, it hits you hard, and then you've got to have that process of coming out, find your perspective, look at it, realize that's the challenge that actually makes life fulfilling, whatever the process is for you,
Yes.
and be able to see it with a new perspective that brings joy in that moment, and joy being like, could be something as just as simple as saying, well, this is I'm going to look back on this and I'm going to love this. This was a great moment, even though it was really hard. This has helped me evolve, and that's a joyful
Yes.
thing. So yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, and so having the time to reflect, to maybe meditate, to maybe journal in order to get those insights and those learnings. Because so often
Yes.
we're just going through life and we're just being reactive and we're not really stopping to think about what those lessons are. Because the quicker we get through the more we deal with the difficulty and the struggle, the more learnings we get, and actually that's when you're growing, that's when you're becoming.
Yeah.
So yeah, also taking the time out, I think it's absolutely essential to take almost deliberately more time out to reflect on what are the learnings, what is it I've got to do differently in order to get different results. Most people, they're just 100 miles an hour and they're just not really changing because they're just reacting to life. And so I think that's a necessity for entrepreneurs, is actually to kind of to slow down and make sure that they're deliberately working on and realizing what the lessons are in order to move on, so that they can make big and important and bold decisions. And actually part of making the bold decisions isn't being disliked, just like whether it's like me in a breaking up a relationship, or whether it's in a business where you're having to hire and fire people because maybe the business is struggling, or they're not performing, or things have changed and that role isn't there anymore, whatever it might be. There's always going to be difficulties and challenges, and taking that being not everyone wants that responsibility, and that's another reason why they hold themselves back. So yeah.
My gosh, and what you've just said there is amazing. It's coming from your perspective, from what you've just been through and your life and everything. This is looking at businesses. I've just had that same conversation, almost exactly word for word said by two of our most prolific mentees who are
Right.
very, very fast growers. And I was literally having the conversation because we were writing an article for them in YPN, or about them in YPN. And basically they said that was one of their biggest learnings of the last couple of years, was exactly that. They needed to slow down. They needed the space to reflect, look back at what's going on. That's when you can make change and evolve. And that was their biggest learning. One of their primary 5 learnings of the last 5 years, 2 years, I mean, was that. It's just to hear it again 2 days in a row, ridiculously important for people
Yeah.
listening. Just
Absolutely.
take the space, make the time to reflect. And you've said journaling was your method that you've just mentioned there, which we've done a separate episode about.
Podcast on. Yeah. Exactly.
Journaling.
So another just idea or big learning that I've had in the
Yeah.
last year is around human design, and we've got another podcast on this, and Jackie interviewing Rebecca about human design. That has, because I've done lots of different psychometric profiles out there. There's over 4,000. I've trained in about 5 different ones, but human design has sort of made all the others pale in comparison, because it is so accurate. It's a sort of the DNA of who you are, and it's just nuts how accurate it is. And the stuff that you're conscious of or not conscious of, the way you make decisions. Oh my goodness, we're making decisions in every moment. We're making sort of 20, 30,000 decisions a day. If you understand how you best make decisions, like how much difference that can make. So bringing in human design into my life, into our lives with DMA and our clients, has definitely been a massive game changer too. It's just helped everyone understand themselves better. And when you understand yourselves, basically you're not beating yourself up so much, because it's like, no, this is the way I'm kind of almost programmed. And it's not a get out clause, but it is a way of just being more self-aware, effectively, of the things that are definitely you're going to be good at, and other things that it's like, well, that's probably not in line with who you are, and therefore it's probably maybe better to delegate that part, get someone else on who can do it for you. Um, so yeah, human design will be my other learning point. Is just been so very useful in understanding myself, in understanding all the different people around me. Now I walk around the street and it's like, oh, that one's a little manifester. The way that person is acting, it's like you just know immediately their energy type. It's fascinating to learn about and then apply to one's life. So that would be the kind of the other one that's made a massive difference in the last
And
12
so,
months.
would you just be suggesting that everyone who's listening to this go out and research it, or like how would someone get into human design?
Yeah, so certainly maybe read a book on it. There's lots of books out there on human design. There's some sort of easier ones and more difficult ones in terms of the length and everything. But there's a website called My Body Graph, and that will give you a reading. You need to know when you were born, because everything, as we know, is energy, and so the moon, the sun, planets, tree alignments, and everything is affecting the energy of the planet. We know that when there are sunspots, there's often big events that happen to humanity, First World War, Second World War, those sorts of things follow sunspots. So we know that everything is energy, and we know that actually when you were born, there was certain alignments and everything else, and these neutrinos, which are particles of energy and matter that have an impact on us the moment we're born. And so that will dictate and influence who you are. Just like, and it links to astrology, with the sun signs around you being a Leo or a Sagittarius or
Yeah,
things like that. They all have an influence. And so human design is called the great experiment. Have a read, see what it works, see if you resonate with it or not. If it doesn't, it doesn't matter.
yeah,
But if it does, actually, yeah, you're going to learn an awful lot about yourself, and there's so much to it. So, look, it's not for everyone. It's maybe not scientific enough for everybody. But when you see and you get a reading, and you realize so many insights as a result of it, and it just is sort of a bottomless pit of knowledge and information and learning. There's so much to it. It's not something you kind of pick up easily. There's
yeah.
aspects of it you can pick up easily, but not everything.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, honestly, I think you're right. You've given a very, very, very brief overview of kind of where human designs come from there, and it definitely isn't for everyone in terms of wanting to buy into how it's created. There's a lot of people who just don't buy into astrology or buy into the sun having an effect on the earth in this way. Regardless of all of that, I would suggest, like, Jackie and I have been absolutely shocked at the accuracy of this. And I don't care if you buy into it or not, you should just check it out just to see the level of accuracy, because I'm honestly, you're right, we did it for us, we've done it for our family, we've checked, and you're right, it's just location, time of birth, and obviously date of birth, time of birth, and location, and then it pops up with your human design, which is different for everyone, because those, it's very, very, I can't think of two people who have been born at the same day at the same time and the same place, right? Exactly the same. That would be twins, basically. But regardless, I when I started looking into it, Jackie, I didn't know any of that background. I didn't really care about the background. I was just like, oh, human design. So, okay, it's an interesting personality profiling tool, whatever, let's check it out. And oh my God, like, have we done it with our clients? Everyone, you're like, wow, how is that so ridiculously accurate? Like, what I'm reading it, and it's not, and you're right, it's not just like a NTJ, whatever the Myers-Briggs version is, where it gives you a fair amount. It is reams and reams and reams and reams of detail and nuanced detail that you're just like, okay, yeah, that hits home. Yeah, that hits home. That hits home. That's real. Yeah, honestly, basically what I'm trying to say is, if you're at all skeptical, don't even think about where it comes from. Just go try it out and see if the results make sense to you, because that's what matters, is the result. You don't have to understand the wherewithal, how it came to be.
Yes. Yeah, no, I agree. It's amazing stuff, and if it's of interest, check it out. If it isn't, then that's absolutely fine too.
So, Dom, let's bring this back together again, shall we? Like, what is your final wisdoms for us? Your final learning point, or bring it all together? Yeah, just give us your thoughts.
So, it is quite difficult to sort of hone them into like 4 or 5 points, because there's so many, and it's been such a journey. But in in essence, my biggest learning or greatest growth has come from the therapy, the rapid transformational therapy about self-trust, and realizing that people are held back by their subconscious limiting beliefs rather than by the lack of knowledge. Knowledge is everywhere. So that's a massive learning point. Human design, learning about yourself so that you make better decisions, and understand your natural gifts, and so that you're more in flow, basically. Um, and also, yeah, understanding, I think that, you know not to condemn others. They're doing the best they can from their own level of awareness, and judgment or condemnation is not necessarily useful. You can have opinions, but you don't need to make someone wrong, because really that actually would be a reflection of something within yourself that maybe needs looking at. um, and yeah, go for the life that you want, not and don't settle for the life you get. And that takes bold moves, and bold moves means that you will be possibly disliked by your community or people around you, and you just need to be willing to go through that, because there's always challenges, but those challenges help you grow.
Wow, I mean, I just think it's just such a beautiful and rare opportunity to hear someone speak so candidly. So a huge thank you for Dom for sharing so openly. This time next week, we are going to be joined by the awesome Hannah and George Dugard, who are absolute demons in the property industry when it comes to sourcing, doing deals. They are an amazing force to be reckoned with. But I'm particularly excited about the topic area that's going to be discussed, and that is commercial conversion nightmares. This is going to be Hannah, George and Dave joining you guys to lay out the brutal truth that can go on behind the scenes with commercial conversions, because I think far too often we see just the flowers and candy unicorn externally portrayed version of this part of the industry, but there's a lot of crap that goes on too, and I'm looking forward to these guys really lifting the lid on some of the challenges that go on there. So you're not going to want to miss that one. So until next week, have a great week ahead.